The system's approach to ODeL is based on a perspective of distance learning as planned learning, as opposed to informal or spontaneous learning. ODeL is a technology-supported learning that requires special techniques of course design, special instructional techniques, special methods of communication, as well as special organizational and administrative arrangements. This perspective looks at assessment as part of the functions of subsystems of the ODeL system. Within each subsystem, there are personnel, processes, and products that perform specific functions of assessment as an institutional responsibility, and that each subsystem assessment aspect are interrelated such that problems in one subsystem will affect the entire assessment feedback cycle. The four subsystems are the course design subsystem, teaching and learning subsystem, student support subsystem, and the organization and management subsystem. Most of the previous perspectives are confined in the teaching and learning and course design subsystems. The view in the other perspectives is that assessment is mostly the responsibility of the teacher, except for large-scale end-of-course examinations. In the system's view of ODeL, the responsibility for assessment of student learning is shared by the entire institution, just like the responsibility for instruction. Under the course design subsystem, some of the functions include designing of the assessment plan, designing of the assessment instruments, development of the assessment instruments, and development of invigilator and marker guides. For the teaching and learning subsystem, the functions are provision of subject matter expertise for assessment, implementation of the assessment plan, especially formative assessment and student self-assessment activities, evaluation and interpretation of results, and faculty development on assessment. For the student support subsystem, the functions are administration of assessment, specifically for large-scale assessment, invigilation or proctoring, transmission of results, securing integrity of examination, and providing assistance for special cases or events, for example, in cases for persons with disabilities. Finally, for the organization and management subsystem, the functions include organization and facilitation of assessment, critical decision-making, for example, an invalidation of exam due to special circumstances, financing assessment operation, recruitment and assignment of personnel for assessment tasks, selection of assessment strategy or platform at an institutional level, management of appeal procedures, and the design of the overall assessment system. Therefore, in ODeL, we cannot just look at assessment from the views of teaching and learning, though that is the core perspective. All the subsystems would need to be addressed when an ODeL institution designs its guiding principles of assessment. A complementary view is to use external standards and heuristics for best practice shared by other ODeL institutions. We can think of using standards of assessment for accrediting programs with external accrediting bodies. We can also look at it as a benchmark to improve the quality of our assessment practices. Dave Bartram presents an excellent framework for assessment standards that group the standards into the aspects of process, personnel, and product. With this framework, we can intersect the student support and organization and management subsystems with process and personnel standards and our guiding principles to design an assessment organization. One of the key decisions is whether that organization will be centralized or decentralized. The answer would, of course, depend on available resources of the ODeL institution and the maturity of its processes. In relation, we would need to consider our main assessment technologies and consider if we will support end-of-course summative assessment or continuous summative assessment. The end-of-course summative assessment is usually used by large-scale, print-based distance learning institutions where students take their proctored examinations in assessment centers. Continuous assessment, in contrast, put more weight on coursework and tracking data that are continuously recorded by learning management systems. It may even include analytic data. This three-part presentation attempts to introduce you to multiple perspectives of assessment in the hope that it will help you reflect on your current assessment practices and in your plans of transforming those practices to reflect new guiding principles. You may also study the supplementary materials on product standards of assessment and process and personnel standards of assessment in DE, which are provided as part of the lessons for this week.